Praise God. I don't want to miss the Lord here this morning because, I know we've got a lot on our plate today, but I just couldn't sit there. I've been thinking about a lot of the same things for some time. You can't help it if you read the papers, watch the news, see what's going on in this world. You just can't help but realize that the time must be getting near, even at the door. And, I would hate to leave here this morning knowing that there are people that have not turned their heart over to the Lord. I mean, that would be, or just go on the way you are, rather than listen. This is the message of the Lord. This message has been going forth. God, if some of you that were around when this work first started back in the 50s, 60s, this was the message that God put on somebody's heart, a burden on somebody's heart. To reach out. And if you will turn to Matthew 25, there's just a few verses here I'm going to read. But before I start there, Phil brought this up about the religious spirit that a lot of people have. They've embraced that as Christ rather than Christ. They've embraced their religion rather than embracing Christ. And they don't know Him. But if you remember in chapter 24, Jesus was explaining what were going to be the signs of His coming and the end of the world. And the very first thing, I want to turn just to chapter 24, the very first verse here, or second verse. And the second verse says, "And Jesus said to them," let me read verse 1. "And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and His disciples came to Him to show Him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See not ye all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." Now, this actually happened. This actually happened. Now, you can say that Jesus is just a liar, but I'm going to tell you something. He prophesied this, and it came to pass. But, and anyway, let me go on. "And as He sat upon the Mount of Olives, His disciples came unto Him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world?" The very first thing out of Jesus' mouth when they ask Him this. And I think it must be the most important. It said, Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. Now, Phil wrote a series of articles on deception, and if you haven't read it, you need to get the book back here and you need to read it. Because deception is rampant. It's in every form, every shape, and it's in religion. And particularly religion. But He said, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and deceive many. They're not coming saying they're particularly themselves or Jesus Christ. They're coming and saying, He is the Christ. And they're pointing to Christ. And they're supposedly preaching Christ. But there's something missing. And it's what this next article is about, actually. It's that missing ingredient. The Spirit of Christ. But he said, so I just wanted to share that because there may be some here this morning. You've embraced religion. You have a religious concept. You are hoping in that. You put your trust in that. Let me tell you, that ain't going to get you to where you need to be. But if you turn over to Matthew 25 now, Jesus gives this parable, and this is the one that, the Lord has used so much. It says, Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened, on the heels of what He was saying about coming to the end. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps, and went forth to meet the bridegroom. Let me say this about the 10 virgins. It says 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. I look at virgin as someone who has escaped, the corruption and, impurity of the world. They have set themselves apart. They're trying to honor something. They're trying to keep themselves pure. Okay, but it says 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. It says, And they that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. And we know that the oil represents the Spirit of Christ. The Spirit of Christ. Now you have 10 virgins. You have those that are pure. You have the religious world. And you have the true believers in Jesus Christ that have the Spirit. Jesus said, or not Jesus, but Paul said, If you have not the Spirit, then you're none of his. I mean, that's what it amounts to. So you have 5 foolish and 5 wise, and they have the oil. But it says, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. That's just what Phil was talking about this morning. How this world just go. I mean, we've heard this for years. We in this church have heard this message for years. And yet I find myself slumbering and sleeping. You know, being in this condition. And even though God has been good and he has come time after time, service after service, met with us, given us light, and helped wake us up, so to speak. You know, when that alarm clock goes off in the morning, sometimes you don't just jump right out of bed. You hit the snooze button. You ain't ready to get up yet. But thank God he keeps working with us. He keeps coming to us. He keeps reaching down to us. You know, just like he did in the days of Noah. He gave him 120 years, reached out to him. Just like he did at Sodom. He tried, but they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen. My God, help us that we listen this morning. But he said, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom comes. Go out to meet him. God is calling us, beloved. He's calling us to go out and meet him. He wants us to come to him. It's the time. Then those virgins arose, and they trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps have gone out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there not be enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. Okay, here it is. It's the end. They have to go out and find oil now. And he says, and while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. And they that were ready went in with him to the marriage. And the door was shut. You know what Phil said there? You know, there's going to be a day when that door is shut. I don't know when that's going to be. But just like Jesus said in Revelation, let him that's filthy be filthy still. Let him that's righteous be righteous still. Behold, I come quickly. There's going to come a time, and let me tell you, when you reject truth and you reject light, the Spirit of God that comes down through service like this, and he gives you his word, and you go off and you just let it roll off of you, you neglect that word, I'm going to tell you something's going to happen. Your heart's going to get hard. And then you may hear it again, and you reject it, and your heart gets harder and harder and harder until eventually you can't receive the love of the truth that you might be saved. We need to really take the more earnest heed here, beloved, this morning to the words that we hear. Because that door is going to be shut, and the Lord is going to come, and you're not going to be ready. I just appreciate this morning. I appreciate it's a stirring word. I'm not trying to scare anybody into the kingdom. God knows those. Let me tell you, the foundation of God stands sure. The Lord knows those that are his. But when he sends forth his word, it invokes a response in you. There's going to be some kind of response in you. You're either going to receive it, bow the knee to Jesus Christ, or you're going to reject it, and your heart's going to get harder. Oh, don't let your heart get harder this morning. Bow your knee to him. He is so precious. He is so precious, and he's worthy. He is worthy, and your wife will be so grand. I'm not saying you won't have trials and tests. Those will come every day. But I'm going to tell you something. God will be with you in those trials. God will be with you through those tests. He's doing that to bring us to himself. There's greater knowledge of who he is, to come into just a loving relationship with him. Understand what our relationship is with him. It's a foundation. It is something worthy of your bowing the knee to. So praise God.